we're firing James Gunn. No doubt about it. We're getting rid of him. That's not really what was going on. Despite what you may hear from people online, I want people to kind of calm down a little bit. I think the big thing is people just want to run around and say XYZ. This is what's going to happen. This is the definite answer of what's going to happen. When nobody knows it. I don't know it. Hell, I don't even think David Ellison knows it right now. And we're going to get into why. Because that's not how mergers work. I've been saying this for months, that when Netflix or when Paramount and whenever companies were looking to purchase Warner Brothers, when they were looking to purchase Warner Brothers, they weren't sitting there saying to themselves, we have to purchase this to fire James Gunn and do what we want to do at DC Studios. None of them were thinking that. No, when they were talking about and thinking about and bidding to get Warner Brothers, it was about the company as a whole, the IPs as a whole. When it was on Netflix's side, they were all about, hey, this will be a gateway for us to get into theaters and have theatrical releases, as well as get a whole plethora of great IPs. And when it comes to Paramount, it's the same thing. They want these IPs. They want to be able to stretch their limbs and really showcase and run future of Paramount and Warner Brothers and things like that. When it comes down to it, people aren't sitting there thinking, when I get Warner Brothers, we're firing James Gunn. No doubt about it. We're getting rid of him. That's not really what was going on. Despite what you may hear from people online, it's not what was happening. It's important to really keep your emotions in check, your passion in check, and look at what is actually being said and what is happening out there. So right now, what changes are going to actually happen? What actually changes? What's going to happen? Well, right now, nothing. Just like what happened when Netflix was the winner of the bid, I sat down and had a very similar discussion. Nothing's going to change. It's going to be the same day-to-day business for James Gunn and Peter Safran. What they're going to do is they're going to keep moving forward. Supergirl comes out, Lanterns comes out, Clayface comes out, Man of Tomorrow gets in production, a couple other things getting put into production, because they can't just stop. They can't just stop, because if they were to stop, then it would totally screw up their future. That means if the Paramount deal doesn't go through, Warner Brothers Discovery and DC Studios are screwed because they have nothing to come out. If it does go through, Paramount will be pissed off because it's like, why'd you stop working while this merger was going on? We need content to come out. Like they said, they want 15 movies a year per studio. 2 to 3 of those are going to be coming from DC Studios every year. So they need to keep moving. They can't stop. They need to keep planning, keep producing. And if they stop, then that's not going to happen. When it comes down to it, nothing is really going to change. Maybe there's going to be a little more scrutiny on spending. Like, hey, we can't spend too much. We can't go balls to the walls on these movies right now until everything's completed. But have things lined up, start planning, start writing, get these projects moving, because we want to make sure we have stuff in the coming years. So yeah, it's not going to stop. Not to mention, look, they have HBO Max and Paramount Plus. They're combining them. They're going to want content and evergreen content. They're going to want content that is truly just theirs for that streaming service. Again, you can't stop. So DC Studios is going to continue putting together shows and making sure they have 1 or 2 shows a year to put on the streaming service, because, well, they need the evergreen content. That's what they need. Now, if the deal closes, if the regulators approve the acquisition and it goes and is officially closes, and that's speculated to happen within 8 to 12 months from now, could be less, could be more, I am going to comfortably say October. Maybe November, but October seems like an ideal time frame for this deal to officially close. I think that's what's going to happen, because they're going to want to get pushed through as quick as possible. If it closes in October, when that happens, that's when the interesting changes can start taking place, and things will start taking place. Basically, the company is going to evaluate everything that's going on within Warner Brothers Discovery and evaluate everything that's going on with Paramount and see, hey, what can we keep? What can we get rid of? That kind of stuff. And the next thing is they're going to look at leadership and the efficiencies and the cost savings across the combined company. What can they do for that? When it comes down to it, they're going to take a look. They're going to sit back and say, Paramount doesn't have a comic or a superhero division. So DC Studios, it's imperative to keep them around. Look, I just saw a post from Sil Abdul saying that Paramount may look and think, oh, we don't need DC Studios anymore. That's just absurd. That's asinine. What we know in Hollywood right now is all these studios, all these companies want to have superhero films on the books. I get that the genre has dipped off quite a bit over the last number of years. Each studio is trying to reinvigorate it, Sony has decided to start anew and start fresh with a new SnyderVerse universe. They canceled everything, the Venoms, the Morbiuses, the Madam Webs, all that stuff that they were planning on doing for like the 5th time. They're canceling that again and starting fresh. Marvel Studios. Look, I know people think that Marvel Studios is just kind of pushing forward and continuing on with things, but believe it or not, after these next 2 Avengers movies, it is going to be a quote-unquote restart, refresh of the universe, which is what they need because they're trying to reinvigorate the genre for the theatrical experience. DC Studios is ahead of the game with that. They're ahead of Sony, they're ahead of Marvel, they're ahead of anybody else that could do it because they started in 2025. So for Paramount to come in and say, and take a look at everything and say, well, this just isn't viable, we're going to get, that's just dumb. They're not going to do that. DC Studios is going to stick around because it's something that Paramount doesn't have at all. They don't have that. New ownership prioritizes the franchises that can most reliably drive streaming subscriptions and theatrical revenue. That goes right back to what I'm saying about DC Studios. DC is going to be a franchise that is going to reliably bring them revenue, whether it's on streaming or in theaters. So again, they're going to keep it around. But here we go. What is James Gunn facing? What is the real thing that he is facing? In the middle of all of this, people want to sit there and say, James Gunn is gone. He's leaving. He's getting booted. Boop, he's gone. Why? Some corners of the internet are claiming that because David Ellison, the Skydance chief, is perceived as a political conservative, which he is. He is. He will automatically remove James Gunn and Peter Safran from DC Studios. Let's be clear about what is fact and assumption. It says there's currently no public statement from David Ellison saying he intends to purge left-leaning creatives from Hollywood or DC Studios specifically. That narrative is being constructed almost entirely from political interference and online chatter, not from on-record corporate guidance. Look, we do know that he wants to get rid of the woke agenda that has been in Hollywood. And yes, doing that is going to mean walking away from certain creatives who love to push their woke ideals and woke agendas. Let's sit back for a second and take a look at things from a larger stance. Paramount owns Star Trek. Star Trek recently, that's what is it, Starfleet Academy or whatever, is one of the wokiest shows that have ever been on TV. A lot of other Star Trek stuff has been the same way. Now, I know a lot of people love to sit there and say, well, Star Trek has always been woke. No, it hasn't. Star Trek hasn't always been woke. Star Trek has always pushed the bar. Star Trek has always been at the forefront of trying to highlight and showcase, hey, this is how our civilization should be and adapt and evolve. But there comes a time whenever it's just incorrect. It's wrong. They're not doing it right. They're not doing it because it fits the story. They're doing it because, we need to put something in there to make sure we have it. And we're seeing that happen with Star Trek right now. The thing is that's under David Ellison. And, well, what has he done? Nothing. He's letting it run its course. He understands that, hey, if it fails, then we'll fix it. But if it succeeds, if it's going to make us money, then let it continue. Let's also take a look at James Gunn. James Gunn has not built his DC films around overt political messaging. He just hasn't. He's never, not even just his DC films, his MCU films. He doesn't push any left-leaning ideals. He doesn't push agendas in his movies. And I know a lot of people want to sit there and say, well, the war stuff in Superman, that was written and it was put into production before all that happened. So it wasn't like it was a commentary on Israel and Palestine like a lot of people want to say. So why would he get fired for his ideals? I've even heard somebody say that Donald Trump doesn't like James Gunn. When has Donald Trump ever said anything about James Gunn? When has James Gunn ever publicly come out and said anything about Donald Trump? I haven't seen it. Maybe he has, but I have not seen it. If he's doing well with the studio, if he's not pushing the agendas that David Ellison doesn't want to see, if he's at least making the studio money, he's not going to fire him. And then there's speculation that John Campea made, that James Gunn will ask to leave, that he will ask to leave, to get out of his contract before the end of 2026. There's no basis on that. There's zero basis on that at all. James Gunn is going to be James Gunn, and look, this is a dream job for a creator like James Gunn. It is, and that's why he has it. That's why he's there. He understands it's a dream job. So to ask to get out of it is kind of ridiculous, especially if David Ellison goes to him and says, look, keep doing what you're doing. Make us some money. We like what we're seeing. Why would James Gunn leave? Now, if David Ellison goes in there and says, look, I want you to change this, change that, change this, change that. First off, David Ellison is a complete fool if he does that. That's called micromanaging, and it's stupid. If he were to just say, hey, James, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing all right. You're doing well. Well, why would anything, well, why? Like, I just don't get it. Now, until something or anything changes on the record when it comes to James Gunn and Peter Safran and David Ellison and all that kind of stuff, people need to just relax. There's literally nothing. Don't listen to your Matt McGloins of Cosmic Book News saying stupid shit. Oh, the MAGA crowd is coming to do this, the MAGA this, the MAGA that. Dude, don't forget that Matt McGloin walked out of the Superman movie and posted and touted how great of a movie it is and how much he loved it and how great of a job James Gunn did. But now he's posting and saying things that James Gunn is out with his horrible DCU and things like, dude, you want to talk about flip-floppers? That's the guy you should be calling out, not someone like me who has stood my ground from the very beginning. People listen to him. People listen to those people who have no idea, no basis or understanding of what is happening. It's pretty pathetic. Look, the early DCU has been a success so far. Superman, $624 million box office, huge audience praises, huge critic praise. People love it. People are excited. It was the highest grossing superhero film in 2025. It outperformed the box office average for superhero films for 3 years in a row. It's been a success for 2025. For where the superhero genre was in 2025, it is a massive, huge success, especially as a first outing for a brand new IP franchise. I'm sorry, like you can't get past that. I know people love to sit there and twist the nerve. It didn't make 670, that Man of Steel man in 2013. It didn't make the same money that Deadpool and Wolverine made. Guys, you're fucking retarded. Because it didn't matter. That was neither one of those were the bar. 2025 was vastly different than 2013. Deadpool and Wolverine was a film 10 plus years in the making. It was an Avenger level type of movie that people wanted to see. So yeah, that's gonna make $1 billion. Superman in 2025, a first outing of a new franchise, coming off the heels of what is probably one of the stinkiest and worst failures of the superhero genre with the DCEU. Yeah, $625 million, critical and audience praises, #1 grossing superhero movie in 2025. That's a massive success. A massive success. And you know who understands that? Warner Bros., Paramount, DC Studios. Hell, even Netflix understood that. So to sit here and think, oh, well, James Gunn's out because it's failed. So far, the DCU has failed. It's not. Peacemaker was a success. Creature Commandos was a success. We're getting a second season of Creature Commandos. That proves that it's a success. And I know a lot of people love to say, well, James Gunn can just greenlight whatever he wants. Yeah, but let's not forget he doesn't run HBO Max. HBO Max are the ones that had to say, hey, we want another one of those. We want to see a second season of that on HBO Max. Because if James Gunn went to them and said, hey, I'd love to do a second season, and HBO Max was like, look, it didn't do well, it was terrible, it did fucking terrible for us, get lost, we would have no Creature Commando Season 2 coming. It was successful enough for HBO Max to say, yeah, we'll take another. So, again, people just don't understand. They want to push agendas and narratives that James Gunn is gone, the DC Studios is ruined, the DCU is over. And that's the ridiculous part of all this, is because they want to push this idea and these ideas that, hey, James Gunn's gone, the SnyderVerse is back. You guys love to push this whole idea that they're going to get rid of James Gunn because he's a leftist and because he has left-leaning ideals. Why would they then bring Zack Snyder in, who is probably more so progressive in what he puts on screen and what he talks about in public? Why would they bring him in? That makes zero sense. There's also this whole thing where people say, oh, well, Paramount wants to have event films. They want to have an event film. They want to have big event movies. Okay, DC they're doing that. Superman, big event movie. They're going to continue to do that. Well, only Zack Snyder can give you that with DC. No. Let's not forget that the biggest DCEU movie wasn't even a Zack Snyder movie. To sit there and act like the only person that can give you big tentpole blockbuster films in DC is Zack Snyder is just absurd. James Gunn just did it with Superman. It's to be seen if Supergirl's going to do it. Clayface isn't that kind of movie. That's more of a, that's almost like an independent film, Clayface. Like it's got that kind of feeling to it in my mind. So it's not a big event film. Supergirl's an event film. Let's see how that does. Man of Tomorrow's going to be an event film. Let's see how that does. I'm banking on both of them doing pretty well, though.